Good morning, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Wednesday to you. 4 days to go till Christmas. I know I'm getting excited, and we've got a lot to talk about. I know I've gotten lots of questions from you all who have been subscribers about this upcoming blizzard bomb cyclone that we're dealing with. I'm going to get to those in just a second, but I did want to share with you guys real quickly. And I know this is a big point of contention with the cost of heating and travel and oil going up. Did you guys hear that Santa Claus had to move the North Pole to the Ohio River for this Christmas Eve? Yep, that's right. Even Santa's got to save some money on gas. Sounds like a commercial. Literally speaking, the polar vortex is taking shape over the US here this week and will end up here over Cincinnati, it looks like, just in time for Christmas Eve. All right, so more serious weather. Let's talk about this bomb cyclone. And in the meteorological world, we don't use the word bomb lightly. Literally, we're going to see low pressure forming here in Missouri and Illinois over the next couple of days, and it is going to strengthen very quickly as it wraps around Lake Huron and into northern parts of Michigan and eastern Ontario. And it's going to crush millions of people with snow, with cold, with wind, with power outages, with travel snarls and headaches and nightmares. And this is just the cold side of the storm. There's going to be a warm side as well, which could cause some problems, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But overlaid underneath, we see what looks to be a very significant snowfall across the Great Lakes. There have been changes in the forecast, and I'm going to get to those in just a little bit. But nonetheless, a very much memorable blizzard for many of us here across the Great Lakes and middle parts of the country, even the eastern Great Lakes and into parts of Canada as well. This is the current watch and warning display from the National Weather Service. Let me make that a little bit larger so you all can see it. And a good chunk of the nation is under some form of advisory, watch, or warning at this point. This is from the National Weather Service. The only area right now highlighted with a blizzard warning is southern Minnesota. This area, though, that encompasses about 5 or 6 states, most of Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Wisconsin is under a winter storm warning. And then we have winter storm watches farther east and southeast, and those will likely be upgraded to at least winter storm warnings, if not blizzard warnings here in the next couple of days. Now, I don't use the term blizzard lightly. The B word is kind of a bad word in the weather community, but basically a blizzard is just a minimum of 3 hours of blizzard conditions where visibilities get down below a quarter mile, winds crank up past 35 miles per hour, surface temperatures drop below 20, and snow is falling. Blizzard does not mean minimum of 3 feet of snow. Blizzard does not mean, temperatures below zero. All it means is that conditions are going to be so dangerous that travel is going to be very much impossible for those of you, even if you're on a sleigh like Santa in the Ohio Valley, apparently. So you may only get 2 inches of snow, but the fact that it may all come within an hour or two and visibility gets down to zero and temperatures drop 20 degrees means you are technically dealing with a blizzard. So I'm not using that term lightly, not just throwing it out there. Now, farther south, we see lots of wind chill watches and warnings. We're going to see the coldest Christmas Eve since the year 1989, all the way down into deep South Texas and on the Rio Grande Valley. We are going to have a front-running system here in the next 2 days that'll produce potentially some ice and light snow from the mountains of western North Carolina up into south central Pennsylvania, all the way up to about Altoona and Johnstown. We do have wind advisories up for New England. I'm going to talk about the warm side of the storm as well and the kind of wind we're going to be dealing with. And those of you in the West, I did not forget about you. We're dealing with heavy snow in the mountains as this Arctic air drops south and east here over the next 2 days. And then another winter storm moves into the Pacific Northwest with snow changing over to ice in places like Portland and Vancouver, Washington, maybe Seattle as well, making for what's going to be very dangerous travel and the likelihood that we see power outages for millions here in the Pacific Northwest, where temperatures right now are in the teens. If you guys remember, it's hard to forget because it was just last year, but the massive outbreak that hit Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas around Valentine's Day 2021 that produced widespread power outages, winter weather across Texas. What you don't remember from that storm system is right behind it, there was a major ice storm in the Pacific Northwest. And those conditions that created that, the milder air of the Pacific coming up and over a very cold high pressure zone led to a major ice storm in the Northwest. And guess what? That looks like it may happen again here as we head into tomorrow night and into the day on Friday. So if you are flying out to the Northwest, do be prepared for some major disruptions and dangerous travel. In California, mild temperatures. We do have fog across the valley as we have a stagnant high pressure zone in place. But it will be a warm Christmas in Southern California. I can guarantee that to you. On the East Coast, it is chilly. I'm here in Raleigh. We did not get out of the 30s yesterday. We even saw a few snowflakes and sleet pellets on the South Carolina border. Nothing that stuck. But we are going to warm up over the next 2 days before it gets much colder. And in Florida, we've got more rain and storms coming your way as well. All right, so let's talk about the snow because that's on everybody's mind. This is weatherbell.com, and this is the likelihood of seeing 90% or higher likelihood of these amounts of snow from the Weather Prediction Center. That's part of NOAA. And you guys can see this is 24-hour snow tonight into the day tomorrow. Several inches expected across central and southern Minnesota, as well as Iowa and northern Missouri. If you're in Des Moines, we're likely to see about 6 inches of snow over the next day or so. Kansas City, about 5 inches. St. Louis, about 4 inches. One of the things that I will share with you all is that the trend for the low pressure track is farther east than what the models showed a day or two ago. So if you're in the Chicago area, there were forecasts for over a foot of snow a couple of days ago and even yesterday. Now today, because that low pressure track is just about 50 miles to the east, it does cut your snow totals down quite a bit in Chicagoland, eastern Illinois, and western Indiana. And the likelihood of us getting a foot of snow right now is pretty remote. It's more likely we're going to be dealing with a 4 to 8 inch snowstorm. Nonetheless, it will still be blizzard conditions for a while as we get to tomorrow night in Chicago. Even if the snow totals drop in half, the wind still continues to be the issue, as well as the temperature drop that's expected here Thursday night, Friday morning. And you guys can see here's the interior snowfall on the leading edge of the storm system, maybe an inch or two in western Maryland, eastern West Virginia, and especially across central Pennsylvania. You folks are pretty used to snow, so probably not a big deal for you. It's the second wave that we see encroaching south and east into parts of the Tennessee Valley, northern Mississippi, Alabama, even northwest Georgia. We'll see a small accumulation of snow. But in the south, small does not mean small. As you guys know, we don't see a lot of snow. Any snow is going to be a big deal. So this storm is saying, hey, I'm kind of a big deal. Hey, look out. But anyways, we head on into Thursday night, Friday morning. Very heavy snow takes shape across Michigan. That's where the worst of the storm is likely going to occur. Not to minimize what's going to happen in northern Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio. We are still going to be dealing with blizzard conditions for a period of the night tomorrow night and a period of Friday morning. As the storm moves eastward, we are going to see rain flipping over to snow very quickly, and 3 to 4, maybe 5 inches of snow across central and western New York State, Pennsylvania, even northern West Virginia. The mountaineers of Morgantown will see a few inches of snow, as will folks down in the Huntington area. But we are not going to see a major snowfall across Arkansas or southwestern Tennessee, sorry to say, if you are a winter weather lover. Gotten a lot of questions about the East Coast, eastern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York City, Baltimore. We are going to see some snow on the backside for just a few hours, and it could fall heavily. The bigger impact that you're going to run into is that temperatures are going to drop a significant amount as that snow falls on Friday. So I really much encourage you to do your travel and do your shopping and other activities before Friday, because by then, as temperatures crash, roads are going to ice up very quickly, causing accidents and all kinds of horrible things potentially. I pray that doesn't happen, but seeing the experience of this in the East Coast and rapidly falling temperatures will mean very treacherous travel. So it's not the light amount of snow we're going to see it's going to cause a problem. It's going to be the fact that rain is going to freeze up quickly as temperatures take a very quick nosedive. Across New England, after the warm blast Thursday night, Friday morning, we change quickly to snow, and 4 or 5 inches could fall across parts of northern Maine, northern New Hampshire. And then we have lake effect snow falling behind this storm system, and that takes shape over much of Michigan, northwest Indiana, western New York, northwest Pennsylvania, northeast Ohio, the usual favorite spots. And if you're in Canada, this will be a pretty big snowfall for you as well across Ontario and Quebec. As we look at amounts that will be exceeding 3 to 4 centimeters over a short amount of time in just 24 hours. So definitely a significant storm system. But the impacts are a lot more than just how much snow is going to be accumulating. And I really wanted to kind of drive that point home for you guys, that this is not just snow. It's an all-out blizzard, an all-out attack of much colder air. The possibility that pipes will freeze all the way to the Gulf Coast of Florida and Texas and Louisiana, very much like they did in 1989. There's one other thing I want to talk about, and that is ice. As we get to this, sorry, that's millimeters. Let me get y'all centimeters or inches. Apologize for that. I thought I had everything up. There we go. Freezing rain. I did talk about the storm in the Northwest, but if you are in the Appalachians and into the Front Range here of the Blue Ridge, as we get to tonight, tomorrow morning, we are going to see some minor accumulations of ice, but any accumulation of ice could be a problem. So maybe a third of an inch when you get north of Roanoke into the Shenandoah Valley into south central Pennsylvania before it changed to rain. That is not associated with the bomb cyclone. That's associated with a disturbance out ahead of it that's forming over the Carolinas this evening. Also, a chance that briefly we see rain going over to freezing rain before a full change to snow across parts of the Mid-South here to lower Tennessee Valley as we get into tomorrow night, and then maybe even into northwestern Georgia. So these are total amounts of potential freezing rain. I'm not too worried about this as much as I am about this, and even a little bit so this right here. I did want to show you all, before we get to temperatures, that there is a warm side of this storm system, and outlooked not today, but tomorrow, especially towards the evening, there is a marginal risk that we could see severe weather. We're not talking a tornado outbreak, but we are talking locally strong winds in the warm sector of this storm tomorrow night. As low pressure moves up to the northeast, we may have a few spots that have to watch out for a few severe thunderstorm warnings. Maybe an isolated tornado, but more likely severe thunderstorm warnings for the threat for strong winds. And that's primarily across eastern North Carolina. So Greenville, Elizabeth City, Morehead City, maybe Wilmington, all the way up into the Tidewater area, Hampton, Newport News, Virginia Beach, that region could have some severe weather, but it's not going to be a widespread event. I don't think there'll be a watch or warning or a severe thunderstorm watch issued. We may have rumbles of thunder, though, late tomorrow night, all the way up into New York City and southern New England, and then also into eastern New England, along with strong winds during the day Friday before that changeover. Also in Florida, heavy rain and thunderstorms are going to be possible once again. I'm not expecting this to be a major severe weather outbreak, but if I were to take a guess, I would say the I-4 corridor could have isolated severe weather as we get to Thursday night, Friday morning. So just something to keep in mind there. By the time it gets to South Florida Friday morning, the instability that produces that severe weather is going to be on the wane. So I guess some good news there. All right, and let's take a look at this front coming down. You guys can see this is Weather Bell's GFS model. The 3-hour temperature change is going to be extreme. We'll see drops of 45 degrees or more as we get to late this morning, and then into this afternoon across Wyoming, 50-degree temperature drops in just 3 hours. So chilly temperatures this morning and then brutal temperatures this afternoon. That's going to take people by surprise. And then as we get into this evening, that drops down into eastern Colorado, southwest Oklahoma. It's really not hard to find the Arctic cold front. It's right here. As we head on into the overnight hours, temperature drops will be extreme across the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma, 35 to 38 degree temperature drops. That's Fahrenheit. And then as we get to tomorrow morning, 20 to 30 degree drops in just a matter of minutes to an hour over central and north Texas, eastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri, even southeastern Iowa. We'll see a temperature drop of about 20 degrees in 3 hours. And then that expands farther south and east Thursday afternoon into East Texas, central Arkansas, eastern Missouri, into the Illinois I-55 corridor, I-57 corridor as well. And then 30 to 35 degree temperature drops coming on Thursday afternoon and early evening across the western Gulf states and into Tennessee and western Indiana. And notice we don't lose any of this drastic change as this front continues barreling south and east into East Tennessee, northwest Georgia, Alabama, tomorrow night into very early on Friday morning. We'll go east as well so I can continue to show you all that. This is early Friday morning, the cold front moving through Asheville, probably right around 3 in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning. And then as we get into the eastern United States, we see these big drops across the eastern Gulf states, southeast Georgia, the Carolinas. Friday morning, we'll have a 25 to 30 degree temperature drop in just a matter of minutes to an hour or two as temperatures continue to crash, and nothing really stops this cold air. It moves into the big cities of the Northeast around lunchtime on Friday, and then Friday evening across New England, and we continue to see big time drops in temperature until finally the storm system has bombed out and the cold air is already in place by Saturday morning, Christmas Eve day. Temperature, we talked about temperatures a lot in the last couple of videos. I'm not going to get back to those too much. We haven't seen much change in those. I will show you all real quick what it's going to feel like with the wind. 35, 40 degrees below zero across 4 or 5 states in the upper Midwest Friday night. Wind chills of 10 to 20 below zero in western Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Indiana. 10 to 20 degrees below zero in the mountains of North Carolina. 17 below zero in Johnson City, Tennessee. 10 below zero just outside of Nashville. Atlanta will be below zero wind chill Friday night. On Christmas Eve day, we continue to have wind chills in the single digits across the majority of the Carolinas, except the low country in the teens that morning. We're used to cold Christmases. It just hasn't happened the last couple of years. But, last year we were sitting around with 60s and 70s Christmas Eve day and Christmas. And now we're talking about wind chills that are below zero across the same areas in Georgia and North Carolina, just very extreme. The good news is that as we get later into Christmas Day, it's not going to be quite as harsh. It'll still be very cold though. And then next week, we start to finally see moderation in temperature with a big thaw coming right on heading into New Year's, where wind chills will be in the 30s next Friday. And that's going to feel like summer compared to what we're getting here later this week and over the weekend. 60s across Louisiana. So there is warming coming. All right, winds. This is going to be a big problem for you guys as well, with power outages likely with strong winds. We see wind gusts likely to exceed 40 miles per hour right behind the front across several states tomorrow night. Out ahead of this storm system, we could see 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts in the Outer Banks. That will likely cause some power outages, also some coastal flooding. So we have 2 areas of wind, one that's out ahead of this front and then one right behind it, both of which are going to cause definitely major issues. A large area is going to see wind gusts over 40 miles per hour across the Ohio and Tennessee valleys, even into the deep south. And that could cause sporadic power outages. Bigger issues where it's snowing, of course, here in the Midwest. But also out ahead of this storm system, I think you guys really need to be prepared for strong winds as it's raining and possibly thunderstorming across the Northeast and the East Coast, as wind gusts may exceed 65 to 70 miles per hour in the mountains of New York State and Vermont, as well as the coast of New England Friday morning. And then Friday afternoon, we're likely to see hurricane force wind gusts blasting Cape Cod, coastal New England, maybe even southeastern parts of Quebec and the St. Lawrence Valley, as well as over Lake Erie, it looks like, and even eastern Lake Ontario. So we've got a large chunk of the United States that is going to be dealing with 40 mile per hour plus winds as that cold air just cuts through you like a knife. But I'm more concerned that a lot of you guys are going to be in the dark without electricity in time for Christmas Eve. So if you have to travel, really get it done now. I mean, just don't even take a chance. I'm sorry to say. But if we're looking at such a large area of 80 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts in New England and 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts around the Great Lakes, it ain't going to be pretty, folks. Sorry to say that. Real quick, we'll take a look into the future because I did want to show you guys, as cold as it gets here over the next week, it is going to be completely wiped out by Pacific air that's going to make us quite a bit warmer here as we get into the start of next year. So this big outbreak of winter is finally going to flip very quickly with 50, 60 degree temperature jumps over a week. And that very much happened when we turned the clock from 1989 to 1990. Sorry about that. We're jumping into the future. However, that warming is going to be temporary as we see yet another pulse of cold air likely to drop down as we get into the second half of the month of January. You guys can start seeing it. This is the climate forecast system. As we get to the final week of January, much of the country is right back into a cold pattern. And oh, by the way, average temperatures a month from now are 5 to 10 degrees colder than they are now. So if we are 25 degrees below average for a week now and only 15 degrees below average a month from now, those temperatures are still going to be very much similar potentially by the end of January to what they are here in the upcoming cold wave that's coming. So amazing stuff. And I wish I had more time, but I know you all have to run and get to the holiday season. So I really appreciate your time today. We'll have another video up for you the next 2 mornings. Then as we get to Christmas, I'm traveling with family. There'll be updates, but they won't be as frequent. By then, the storm should be wrapping up. But I appreciate y'all's time. And if you do have a minute to stick around, I do want to share with you guys that I'm dedicating this forecast to all of those in the service industry, and that includes retail and restaurant. This is the time of the year where you guys shine, and I know a lot of you are doing it to make some extra money to pay for things that you'd like around the holidays, or even just to sustain yourself and pay the bills. But you guys are on my mind, and I want to encourage you and lift you up in prayer today, because that's what's important to me. Weather is very important to me, but I believe that's a gift from God that I can use for a bigger platform, and that's to share the word, share the gospel with you, and the importance of God in my life. He's been in my life for 40 years, even though it took me 30 just to kind of acknowledge that, and now another almost 10 years just to accept that this gift from God needs to be shared with other people. So keeping that in mind, it is very easy to have a stressful holiday season with the cost of things, especially in 2022. I mean, I was looking back at what I spent in 2019, and my goodness, has it climbed. But there are people out there that are working their tails off to support their families, people that are waiting on tables. When you guys go out to eat over the holiday season, keep that in mind. Just be nice to the people, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. There's people that are working 12, 18, 20-hour days. There's people that are, in retail that are working long hours just so that you people that are working most of the year get a few days off to go shop for them. And listen, I have a lot of friends that are waiters, that are cooks, that work in the restaurant industry that barely get to see their family around Christmas. People in the retail industry, I have a lot of dear friends that are working some crazy overtime right now. Due to the fact that so many folks have been sick, they've got to cover basically 2-3 people's jobs. And you folks are definitely on my mind. I am praying for you to have a prosperous holiday season and to see through this temporarily difficult time that you're going through, folks. I really appreciate what you do. I am blessed to say that I do not work in the service industry by choice. But I know for some people, you don't really have that choice. You've got to sustain your family and pay the bills. And I totally agree that you are very much underappreciated by people. But I'm a person that, as a child of God, appreciates what he's done for me. And because of that, I have the gift of appreciation for all that you do. So I'm going to read a passage for you real quick. And that is all the way back in the Old Testament from the book of Job 37:5. God's voice thunders in marvelous ways. He does great things beyond our understanding. He says to the snow, fall on earth, and to the rain shower, be a mighty downpour, so that everyone he has made may know his work. He stops all people from their labor. The animals take cover. They remain in their dens. The tempest comes out from its chamber, the cold from the driving winds. The breath of God produces ice, and the broad waters become frozen. He loads the clouds with moisture. He scatters his lightning through them. At his direction, they swirl around over the face of the whole earth to do whatever he commands them. He brings the clouds to punish people or to water his earth and show his love. Listen to this, Job. Stop and consider God's wonders. Do you know how God controls the clouds and makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds hang poised, those wonders of him who has perfect knowledge? You who shelter in your clothes when the land lies hushed under the south wind, can you join him in spreading out the skies, hard as a mirror of cast bronze? And I will tell you what, folks, this verse very much spoke to me as a meteorologist, knowing that it is very humbling to see the weather unfold and to do my best to predict it and prepare folks. But remember, all of this is created by God's voice and God's breath. God has created the earth. He's also created some of this insane weather. And he wants us to see his love. He also wants us to see his judgment, and that he's a jealous and angry God. He's punishing people with a blizzard. Why is he punishing people? I really don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is that everything is his creation, and he is asking Job to stop and consider his wonders. Are you listening to God? Are you going through a storm right now and leaning on your own understanding, or are you leaning on God's understanding? Listen, we cannot do everything here by our own power. We need God to back us up and support us. We need to know God. We need to not only know God, but share him with others. And more importantly, not just God, but the love of Jesus Christ, our Savior. We are celebrating his birthday this season. Jesus is our Savior. He's here to save us from the terror that God has rained upon some of the folks out there, and really the enemy. Because what happens is when your time is up on earth, and that may be tomorrow, it may be next week, next year, 50 years from now, I certainly hope that it's a while off, but we don't know when that's going to happen. All we can really do is on that judgment day, answer to God and say, listen, God, I understand that there were challenges and storms that I was faced with every day, but here's what I'm doing. Because the Lord Jesus stands up for us and has absorbed our sins and wiped us clean of his debt, we can stand before God and say, God, I believe you, man. I'm ready for heaven. I'm ready for eternal life. John 3:16. Not only am I ready, but I've readied other people. I've made an influence on other people. I've shared your wisdom and your love with others who maybe did not believe in you, who maybe believed in you but didn't really walk the life, who maybe served others but didn't stick their neck out a little harder and say, the love of Jesus is with you. I want to show you the way, the truth, and the life. So, man, that is so powerful. And it's taken me 40 years to start sharing the word. I'm not a preacher. I'm just sharing what I'm reading with you guys. But I encourage you to lift each other up in prayer. I ask you if you have any prayers, and a lot of you do, please feel free to either message me or put a comment down. I'm happy to pray for you and have other believers pray for you. Um, People are praying for me for this channel to take off. I started it December 1st. Here we are 21 days into the month and we're in business. And I don't care so much about the money as I care about how many lives I can potentially help change. That to me is what's more important. So I really appreciate y'all. Sorry I had coffee, so I'm just speeding through these words. I need to sit down and let God help me slow down and appreciate what I'm taking the time to share with you all today. So everybody have a wonderful day. Please be safe. I challenge you to kind of take my advice and be humbled by the weather that's coming. I also really hope that everybody can keep their electricity and can have a safe holiday season. So God bless you all. Take care. I love you very much.